was a bright, sunny morning. Sophie stood in front of a large school building, clutching the straps of her backpack tightly. Her heart was racing and her stomach felt like it was full of butterflies. "Okay, Sophie, you can do this," she whispered to herself. Today was Sophie's first day at her new school. Her family had just moved to this town, and everything felt new and unfamiliar. The students rushing past her, the sound of lockers slamming shut, and the distant chatter in the hallways, all of it felt overwhelming. What if I can't understand what they're saying? What if I say something wrong? Sophie thought, her face turning slightly red. But she took a deep breath and reminded herself why she was here. I'm here to learn, to make friends, and to grow. She adjusted her backpack and stepped through the big glass doors of the school. The hallway stretched out in front of her, lined with bright posters, colorful lockers, and students laughing in small groups. Sophie's eyes scanned the crowd, hoping to see a friendly face. But everyone seemed busy with their own conversations. I just need to find my classroom, she thought. At that moment, a warm smile appeared in front of her. A teacher wearing a friendly expression approached Sophie. "Hello there. Are you new here?" The teacher asked kindly. Sophie nodded and managed to say, "Yes, I'm new." "Welcome to our school. Let me show you to your classroom," the teacher said, gesturing for Sophie to follow. Sophie felt a small wave of relief wash over her as she followed the teacher down the hallway. This was just the beginning, but Sophie knew that every journey starts with a single step. The teacher led Sophie down a bright hallway filled with colorful posters and student artwork pinned to the walls. The hum of conversations and occasional bursts of laughter echoed through the corridor. Sophie clutched her backpack strapped tightly, her eyes darting around as she tried to take in everything at once. "This is your classroom," the teacher said with a warm smile, stopping in front of a door labeled Class 5B. Through the window on the door, Sophie could see a room filled with children around her age. Some were talking, others were unpacking their bags, and a few were already sitting quietly at their desks. "Go on in," the teacher encouraged her softly. Sophie hesitated for a moment before stepping inside. The classroom felt both lively and intimidating. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, casting a warm glow over the desks arranged in neat rows. The walls were decorated with educational posters, and there was a big whiteboard at the front of the room with today's date written in bright marker. A woman stood at the front of the class, clearly the teacher. She had short brown hair and wore a long blue dress. "Good morning, everyone," the teacher said as she spotted Sophie at the door. "Class, we have a new student joining us today. Please give a warm welcome to Sophie." The class turned their heads to look at her. Sophie felt her cheeks flush as she gave a small wave and said, "Hi," in a quiet voice. "Welcome, Sophie." A few students said in chorus. "You can sit over there next to Emma," the teacher said, pointing to an empty desk by the window. Sophie walked over and sat down. The girl next to her had curly blonde hair and a bright smile. "Hi, I'm Emma," the girl said cheerfully. "Hi, I'm Sophie," she replied, her voice a little steadier this time. Emma grinned. "Nice to meet you, Sophie. Don't worry, you'll love it here." Sophie felt her shoulders relax slightly. For the first time that morning, she felt a flicker of hope. Outside the window, she could see the schoolyard where children were already running and playing. The bell rang, signaling the start of the day, and Sophie took a deep breath. Okay, I can do this, she thought to herself. The day was just beginning, and Sophie was ready to face it. The classroom buzzed with quiet chatter as the teacher began the morning lesson. Sophie sat at her desk, clutching her pencil tightly. The teacher spoke slowly and clearly, but Sophie still struggled to understand every word. From the corner of her eye, she noticed Emma glancing at her and smiling. When the teacher turned to write something on the whiteboard, Emma leaned slightly towards Sophie. Hey, are you okay? Emma asked softly. Sophie hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. Yes, I'm okay. Thank you. Emma's smile widened. Don't worry, you'll get used to everything soon. Do you want to sit with me during lunch? Sophie felt a wave of relief and managed a small smile. Yes, I'd like that. Thank you, Emma. The teacher turned back to the class. All right, everyone. Today we're going to practice introducing ourselves. Pair up with the person next to you and ask them their name. Then tell the class what you learned about your partner. Sophie's heart started beating faster. She looked at Emma, who was already looking back at her with an encouraging expression. Okay, I'll go first, Emma said confidently. Hi, what's your name? Sophie took a deep breath. Hi, my name is Sophie. Nice to meet you, Sophie, Emma said cheerfully. Nice to meet you too, Emma, Sophie replied, her voice clearer this time. Emma clapped her hands quietly. See, you're doing great. After a few minutes, the teacher asked the pairs to share with the class. When it was Sophie and Emma's turn, Emma volunteered to speak. This is Sophie. She's new here and she's really nice, Emma said confidently. The class smiled and nodded in response. Sophie felt a warm glow of pride. It wasn't as scary as she thought. After the exercise, the teacher moved on to another activity, and Sophie started to feel more at ease. She noticed that Emma was kind and patient, and it made everything feel a little easier. When the bell rang for the first break, Emma stood up and gestured to Sophie. Come on, let me show you around. Sophie followed Emma out into the hallway. The school felt less intimidating now. The corridors were full of students chatting and laughing, and Sophie could hear fragments of conversations in English everywhere she turned. See? It's not so bad, right? Emma said as they walked toward the cafeteria. No, it's not so bad, Sophie replied with a shy smile. The two girls entered the cafeteria where the smell of food filled the air and students sat in groups, eating and talking. Sophie realized something important at that moment. Learning English wasn't just about books and lessons. It was also about connecting with people. As Emma guided her to a table, Sophie felt something she hadn't felt all morning. She felt like she belonged. Thank you, Emma, Sophie said softly. Any time, Sophie. Emma replied with a grin. Sophie knew she still had a lot to learn, but now she also knew she wouldn't have to face it alone. After the break, Sophie and Emma returned to their classroom. The teacher was already standing at the front, holding a stack of worksheets. Sophie felt a bit more confident now, especially with Emma by her side. All right, class, the teacher began. We're going to practice asking and answering questions today. Let's start with something simple. The teacher wrote a question on the whiteboard. What's your name? Let's practice together, the teacher said with a smile. When I point to you, I want you to stand up, Say your name and then ask the question to someone else. One by one, students stood up, introduced themselves, and passed the question along. Sophie's heart started racing as her turn approached. Finally, the teacher pointed at her. Sophie stood up slowly, her hands trembling slightly. "Hi, my name is Sophie," she said, her voice soft but clear. The teacher nodded approvingly. "Well done, Sophie." "Now, choose someone to ask the question." Sophie turned toward a boy sitting across the room. "What's your name?" she asked carefully. The boy smiled and replied, "My name is Lucas." Sophie sat down, a wave of relief washing over her. Emma leaned closer and whispered, "You did great, Sophie." The activity continued, and Sophie realized that everyone was trying their best. Nobody was perfect, and that made her feel more comfortable. After the introductions, the teacher handed out worksheets with simple questions. What's your name? Where are you from? What's your favorite color? Work with your partner and fill in the answers, the teacher instructed. Sophie and Emma worked together on the worksheet. Emma went first. What's your favorite color, Sophie? Emma asked. My favorite color is blue, Sophie replied with a small smile. Nice, mine is yellow, Emma said cheerfully. They continued through the worksheet, laughing quietly when they got stuck on a word or needed to repeat something. Sophie noticed that practicing with Emma made everything easier. As the teacher walked around the room, she stopped by Sophie and Emma's desk. Great teamwork, girls, she said warmly. When the bell rang to signal the end of the lesson, Sophie felt a sense of accomplishment. She had spoken English in front of her classmates, answered questions, and even asked a question herself. Packing her bag, she turned to Emma. Thank you for helping me today. You don't have to thank me, Sophie. That's what friends are for, Emma replied with a grin. As the students began to leave the classroom, Sophie glanced back at the whiteboard. The words, "What's your name?" and "Nice to meet you," were still written there in bold letters. Today was a good day, she thought to herself. With Emma by her side and a little more confidence in her heart, Sophie felt ready to face whatever came next. The classroom was now quiet, with students packing their bags and chatting softly before the final bell. Sophie sat at her desk, reflecting on everything she had learned that day. The teacher stood at the front of the room, clapping her hands gently to get everyone's attention. Before we finish, let's review what we practiced today, the teacher said with an encouraging smile. She wrote 3 key sentences on the whiteboard. Hi, what's your name? My name is Sophie. Nice to meet you. These are simple but very important phrases when you're meeting someone new, the teacher explained. Let's practice them together one more time. The teacher pointed at the class. Everyone repeat after me. Hi, what's your name? The class repeated in unison. Hi, what's your name? Good. Now let's try the second one. My name is... and add your own name. Each student said their name aloud, including Sophie. This time, her voice was clear and steady. My name is Sophie. Well done, everyone. And the last one, nice to meet you. The classroom echoed with voices saying, Nice to meet you. The teacher paused and looked at the students. You see, these simple phrases can open doors to conversations, friendships, and confidence. Don't be afraid to use them. Turning back to the whiteboard, the teacher added a quick example. In the classroom, hi. What's your name? At the park, Hi, my name is Sophie. With a new friend, nice to meet you. These sentences are not just words, they are tools to help you connect with people. Emma turned to Sophie and gave her a thumbs up. Sophie smiled back. All right, class, before we end today, I want you to think about this. Every time you use these words, you're building confidence in English. So don't be shy, keep practicing. The final bell rang and students began gathering their things. Sophie stood up, feeling a sense of pride. She realized that those 3 simple sentences, "Hi, what's your name? My name is Sophie. Nice to meet you," were much more powerful than she had imagined. As she followed Emma out of the classroom, Sophie repeated the phrases softly to herself, smiling as she did. "Hi, what's your name? My name is Sophie. Nice to meet you." She was ready to practice them again tomorrow. As Sophie and Emma stepped outside into the schoolyard, the sun warmed their faces and laughter filled the air. Sophie took a deep breath, feeling lighter than she had all morning. Today wasn't so scary after all, she thought with a smile. Emma turned to her and said, "See? You did great today, Sophie." Sophie nodded confidently. "Thank you, Emma. I'm glad I tried." The narrator's voice returned softly. "Remember, every little step counts. Learning English is like making new friends, one word, one smile, one sentence at a time. Keep practicing and don't be afraid to speak." The screen faded to the final message. If you enjoyed today's story, don't forget to subscribe, and join us for the next adventure. See you soon. Bye-bye.